In accordance with Open Public Meetings Act, PL 1975, Chapter 231, adequate notice of this regular meeting of the Planning Board of the Township of Franklin has been provided. If everyone could please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Councilman Chase.
Here.
Mr. Howe.
Here.
Scarazzi.
Here.
Scriver.
Here.
Mr. Mettler.
Here.
Mr. Manzarek.
Here.
Mr. Pettit.
Here.
Mr. Thomas.
Here.
Mr. Ragnow.
Here.
Mr. Amola. Chairman Orsini.
Here. Welcome back, Jim.
Thank you, sir.
Nice to have you again.
Doing a lot better than I was. I'm walking, I'm alive.
That's
I
all
was
important.
vegetable for a while, too. No, I'm doing good, I'm okay.
Oh, welcome back. It's
Wacky as ever.
good to have you back, and we missed you.
Okay, appreciate that.
Minutes from the regular meeting, January 20th. If I could have a motion or any corrections?
I wasn't there, so I can't do that.
Oh,
Mr. Chairman, I would move approval of the minute.
okay, I'll second.
Councilman Chase.
Yes.
Mr. Howe.
Yes.
Scarazzi.
Yeah.
Mr. Mettler.
Yes.
Mr. Manzarek.
Yes.
Ms. Ragnow.
Yes.
Chairman Orsini.
Yes. Only have the one resolution, Vince?
That is true.
Okay. So that is Onyx LLC, PLN 15-00015.
resolutions in this packet.
Oh, no, he's right. We have, yeah, but they're not, she didn't put them on
They're in the
the,
original packet.
Yeah, they're not on my final agenda.
yeah, I don't, they should have been on the final agenda. All three that are in the packet.
Well, wait, I have the preliminary agenda, so we have, okay, wait, before we do Onyx, let's see. It says to be provided, Canal Walk, Franklin Juliet, Sluka, VGS, and Canal Walk.
Yeah, you have the two others.
No.
Franklin Juliet, Canal Walk, and Onyx.
Franklin Juliet, Canal Walk, both Canal Walks.
I can tell you Swicka is not ready because I didn't get the minutes until yesterday.
Okay, and VGS.
VGS the
You
same.
have your
Okay. Okay, so we'll do that.
This is
All right.
That's the resolution.
So they're in our packets. They just weren't on the agenda, so let's just,
We could, why don't you do Onyx, and I can tell you who's
yeah.
Councilman Chase, Mr. Howe, Ms. MacGyver, Mr. Mettler, Mr. Thomas, and Chairman Orsini are eligible to vote on that one.
Okay, so I make a motion to approve on the Onyx LLC.
Second the motion.
Councilman Chase.
Yes.
Mr. Howe.
Yes.
Ms. MacGyver.
Yes.
Mr. Mettler.
Yes.
Mr. Thomas.
Yes.
Chairman Orsini.
Yes.
All right.
So you want to do Canal Walk, the preliminary sub?
Yeah.
We can do that? Okay.
Yeah,
so
let's do Canal Walk.
That's PLN 14-00003.
Yep, and that's Councilman Chase, Mr. Howe, Ms. MacGyver, Mr. Mettler, Mr. Thomas, same people, Mr. Orsini.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve that.
Second.
Councilman Chase.
Yes.
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
Ms. MacGyver,
No.
Mr. Mettler,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Chairman Orsini.
Yes. And then we'll do Canal Walk, PLN 15-00004. I'll make a motion to approve that.
No, we
Second.
don't- No, we don't have that. We did that already. We did that.
What?
The other one you have is, we did on it,
Franklin Juliet, which is the Wawa.
right, we have Franklin Juliet.
Okay, so scratch that other Canal Walk, right? So, all right, so Franklin Juliet, PLN 15-00013. I'll make a motion for that.
Second.
Councilman Chase.
Yes.
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
Ms. MacGyver,
Yes.
Mr. Mettler,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Chairman Orsini.
Yes. So that's it for that, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So vouchers, Clark and Vignuolo, PC, February retainer, in the amount of $833.33.
Move to approve.
Second.
Councilman Chase.
Yes.
Mr. Howe.
Yes.
Oh, Mr. Grazi,
Yes.
Ms. MacGyver?
Yes.
Mr. Mettler?
Yes.
Mr. Manzarek?
Yes.
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Rangnow?
Yes.
Mr. Mola?
Yes, please.
And Chairman Orsini.
Yes. So before we get to the public comments, let's do a little housekeeping. So Benefit Mall, PLN 16-00001, going to be carried to March 16th, 2016, with no further notice. Hamilton Street Management, LLC, PLN 15-00017, same, March 16th, with no further notice. And that's what I have so far. So those two will be carried with no further notice. So the one we will hear tonight is 7:45. So with that, I'll make a motion open to general public comments.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's open now for general public comment that's not pertinent to any applications that are being heard tonight.
Seeing no one coming forward, Mr.
Well. Yep,
Yep.
just like at council.
Yep. This is public on anything except that which has its own hearing.
My name is Carl Wright. I live at 139 Fuller Street, Somerset, New Jersey. I had one question. That was the moving forward a application to another date. And as you keep moving it forward, I noticed that there's no notice required, which means if I come to the first one, I can easily blow the second one or the third one, depending on how far you push it down the road. Now, does that have to be a council ordinance that moves it down the line? Or how exactly would you do that to make it, to allow people to know how he moved down the line? Who gets to
Okay.
pay for that little puppy?
All right, here's your answer. When the board does not complete an application, or it doesn't even start it, it will make an announcement that no further notice and no further publication in the paper is required, and that for the benefit of everyone present, all right, you're being reminded you will not get any additional notice, but the next meeting is on such and such a date. So if you're here for the first one, you can't blow the second one because you're being told when the next hearing is.
Okay, so if I blew the first one, or if I couldn't make the first one, but I know things weren't done and I'm trying to look for the second one, if I don't have a website or access to the computer,
You'd call us, Carl.
Exactly, you call the clerk.
You call the clerk, the planning office, and we would tell you where it's on the schedule.
and there's no way to change that.
It's state law. State law allows us and expects us, you can't expect an applicant to have to renotice every time. That's onerous on them. If you're an interested party, state legislature, the governor in the past has said, you're going to come to the meeting. And that's why we announce at the beginning for the ones that, and if we don't finish this one tonight, it'll be announced, it'll be carried to a date certain without public notice. So anyone in the public who's here has an opportunity, or as some people come up if they have to leave, they'll come up and ask myself or someone else when. But the information's out there. It's on the website. It's available. If you don't have it, you call. If you're interested, you take the initiative, you call, and we'll tell you, and we'll share the information with you.
Okay, so, and I don't want to take up any more of time, but another question along the same way. If I don't come up and see you and say, hey, Vince, I need to know this, or Mark, can you tell me that? Is it listed anywhere in the building? What's coming up, or if I come?
We have it on our website. We don't have.
Forget the
We don't
website.
have a planning and zoning, board in the building, all the public notices that the clerk's required to post. I mean, we have the notices on the board, I believe the clerk does on the various meeting dates.
Okay.
But you have to take the initiative to call us, or to contact us, or email us, or whatever. And most people do.
But again, I want to eliminate that email stuff because not everybody has email access. That's why I wanted to, move
Well,
that
then you
up.
either have to call or you have to stop by the building. Because if you get noticed, you're told that you can come by the building, 7:30 to 4:30, Monday through Friday, with a phone number and an address to get the information. And everything we have on this applicant is public record. So you can look at it, we'll make you copies, and we'll have a discussion with you or anyone else.
Okay, that's what
I think the bottom line is the public has an opportunity to use the website, to call, or to come in person. I
Okay.
mean, there's several different avenues for people to find out.
And also, anyone within 200 feet of the property that's being discussed is going to get noticed anyway.
Well, see,
by
I went
law.
around.
That's
that.
at the beginning. They're not gonna not going to get a notice that it's been
Right.
postponed.
But I mean, again, you have to take, I guess,
Yeah.
some initiative. I mean,
But that's another point too. A lot of general public do not understand. They come here and complain or comment that they weren't notified, but it is only within 200 feet.
Right.
Otherwise, you're not going to get a notification.
Yes, that's the thing. I went around to look at people in a particular area, and half of the people, no, 3/4 of the people didn't know what was going on. And I said, well, you better know because this is in your backyard. Then all of a sudden, the bell started ringing and clicking about what should happen and how things are going to happen, but they just never showed up.
That's why they have to
Again,
rely on their ward council person to keep them aware, right?
That's why I'm here.
And, Carl, I know you don't like the email, but as Carl just pointed out, you could sign up on our website for the email blast, and you get noticed of all the meetings, of all the changes, the agendas, and everything else.
Okay.
So if people who have that ability to do that. Once again, we're here all the time, so, and you stop in all the time to talk to us and send people our way, and we'll spend whatever amount of time they need to be spent discussing.
Not a problem. When I go back on Saturday, I'll let everybody know you should have been here. And for anybody carrying something over, I'm going to bring that too. Thank you.
thanks, Carl.
If I could just comment, there's the Sustainable Jersey action about increasing public participation in planning and zoning. And I think one of the things they expect is posting of the agenda on a bulletin board as well as on the website. And I'm just thinking, once the agenda is final, you could post it on the bulletin board out there.
We could do that.
And
That's,
of course, then we have it available to people when they come to the meeting.
Yep, that's a good idea. I mean, even the preliminary one, there may be things deleted, but there probably rarely is anything added, mostly, from the preliminary one. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak in a general sense?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think Dr. Chase is right, because I believe the Open Public Meeting Act is someplace in reading it, and posted in a prominent place in the municipal building.
no, it is.
But only
The meeting dates are posted.
Yeah.
That's
That only applies to the meeting dates.
right. I mean, but we can, as Councilman pointed out, we can easily post the agenda. I mean, that's just giving them to Anne Marie, and she'll post them.
Okay, seeing no other people coming forward, I make a motion to close the public session.
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so our one hearing tonight is 745 Hamilton. I'm going to give Peter a chance to get situated, and then we'll lay down some ground rules.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Peter Lanford appearing on behalf of the applicant. This is an application for a subdivision approval to create 3 single-family residential lots and also site plan approval to construct a mixed-use building. The 3 single-family lots are in the R7 zone. The site plan approval is in the HBD zone. I want to spend a minute or two just going into a little bit of background, and then we could talk about where we go from there this evening. My client purchased the property in June of 2013 from the estate of Deal on the subject property. And actually, there will be an exhibit that's going to be used by both the architect and engineer, which, if I may, Mr. Clark, can mark it as A1.
Please do. And just give us, Pete, an idea of how this was put together in Byhoff.
I will have the witness get to it when he testifies.
Fine.
But just for reference, the property's on Hamilton Street and DeWald. When we first started this project, after my client purchased the property in 2013, we prepared a concept plan and met with the municipality. The concept plan talked about demolishing the existing dwelling, which was in a state of, and still is in a state of disrepair. And then at that time, we were going to propose 3 single-family lots in the R7 zone, improve Martin Street, a 4th single-family lot on the other side of the street, and a smaller commercial mixed-use building. We had numerous meetings, and an application was submitted in the summer of 2015. When we submitted that application, we submitted all of the requisite reports, including traffic study, engineering. We had a stormwater management report. We did soil borings. We did everything in conjunction with that application. After the application was submitted, the township then amended the zoning ordinance as it affects the HBD district, which allowed us to substantially change and modify the site plan. Again, we had meetings with the staff. The result of that is the plan that's before this board this evening, which actually eliminated one of the single-family lots and added it back into the mixed-use site. It called for a larger building. There's actually some additional residential units above that. When we did that, the stormwater management report was based on a stormwater management system which was basically in the vicinity of the intersection of DeWald and the new extended Martin Street. Obviously, with the building going there, the stormwater management system can't go there, so we are now in the process of redesigning the stormwater management system, doing the testing to relocate it underground under the parking lot. So that's one of the things that we have not done. Other than that, we have met with the staff and basically had meetings as late as yesterday, and I think since we submitted version number 2, we've had numerous comments which we have addressed, and I think the board this evening has a full plan before it other than that issue, and there's still a slight resolution that has to be made with the engineering department regarding site triangles, which I'll explain to you through testimony. But other than that, we are here to present basically now a subdivision for a 3-lot subdivision as opposed to the original 4-lot subdivision, and a application for a mixed-use building, all in conformance. We also have revised the parking to meet all the parking requirements. There are no variances in conjunction with this application.
Don't you mean a 4-lot subdivision rather than a 5-lot subdivision?
No.
Because you've got the 3 house lots and the lot for the mixed-use building.
That exists. The mixed-use building lot exists. That's not being subdivided.
Okay. Well, the merging existing lots.
The mixed-use lot is a separate lot from the single-family residential separated by Martin Street. The subdivision involves the 3 residential lots.
Okay. But all the paperwork talked about 4 lots.
That was our original application. We were creating a 4th lot on the other side, but we have eliminated that. So it's not a question of merging it. We've eliminated it as a result of the ordinance change that you passed earlier, or at the end of last year.
So basically, it's the mixed-use development to the south of Martin, 3 single-family homes to the north.
Bottom line, that's it.
Okay.
So, the feedback that I've gotten from the township professionals and the board as a whole indicates discomfort with approving the application tonight without the benefit of the final stormwater. So, what I'm willing to do is to hear everything else, give you our feedback, and carry it until your stormwater plan has been vetted by the township professionals and comes back before the board. This could result in another appearance that takes 5 or 10 minutes at most.
That's obviously the board's prerogative, and if that's the way the board wants to proceed this evening, I will gladly do that. I will, just for the record, I will present the testimony of the architect this evening, then. I will present the testimony of the site engineer. I will not present any stormwater management testimony this evening. From him, I will deal with everything else involving the project. And then I will also have some brief testimony from our traffic expert concerning the site triangles, and hopefully get through that fairly quickly this evening, and then we can figure out the new date, and hopefully we will have all the stormwater management at that time.
That sounds like a plan.
Works for me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My first witness is Mr. Ludwig.
Raise your right hand. Solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Name and address for the record, please.
Kurt J. Ludwig, my address is 77 North Main Street, Milltown, New Jersey.
Mr. Ludwig, what is your occupation?
Registered architect in the state of New Jersey.
Can you give the board the benefit of your educational and professional background?
Yes, I received my architectural degree from Arizona State University. I opened up my own practice at its current location in 1991. I've testified in front of numerous boards, including this board.
You're accepted.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Ludwig, to my left on the board is an exhibit which is a site rendering. Was that exhibit generated from your office?
Yes.
Okay, and the site rendering shows a colorized version of the site plan, which was prepared through your office, is that correct?
That's correct.
And also the architectural plans, which were prepared by you and your staff?
That's correct.
Okay. You are familiar with the zoning ordinance as revised for the Hamilton Street Business District, is that correct?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Can you indicate to the board the building, and I guess you do have some,
Yes, I was just going to ask if you wanted to hand those out.
you ultimately will be
Correct.
relying on 4 exhibits, which we will mark as we go through this,
Okay.
and these are
Those are...
reduced size versions of the 4 exhibits?
Right.
Mr. Clark, and we'll mark the others when he gets to them.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Mr. Ludwig, can you describe the building that we are going to build at the subject property?
Sure. Again, my firm provided the design and the presentation boards that we have here tonight. This board indicates the proposed site plan, which includes a proposed L-shaped building on the corner of Hamilton Street and DeWald Avenue. The building is a 3-story structure. The first floor includes a combination of retail and residential apartments. The retail is located along Hamilton Street with entrances along Hamilton Street and from the rear parking area. The leg along DeWald Avenue includes several residential apartments. The second and third floor include strictly residential apartments. We have a total of 30 apartments. 13 of those would be 1-bedroom, and 17 of those are 2-bedroom.
Now, with respect to the commercial space on the first floor, what is the total square footage of the commercial space?
That total square footage is 6,000 square feet. That is this rectangular area on the bottom.
And it encompasses all of the frontage along Hamilton Street?
That's correct.
And that 6,000 square feet is capable to handle either a single commercial user or multiple commercial users, depending as the tenants come along?
That's correct.
Okay. The apartments that you are proposing, you indicated that they are 1 and 2 bedrooms. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Are the sizes of the units generally the same?
They are. I can go through the square footages if you
Please
like.
do that.
Sure. Typically, the 1-bedroom units are approximately 864 square feet, and the 2-bedroom units 981 square feet.
Okay. And obviously, they have, the 1-bedroom units have living room, kitchen, 1 bedroom, 1 bath?
Yeah, if I may, on the next board, I
Okay.
have a layout of the apartments, if I can.
Why don't we mark that as
That-
A2, and then you could take the board through the apartments.
So I'll mark this A2.
Please.
Okay. This board that I marked A2 includes the first floor plan, which is at ground level. The area along the left is the 6,000 square foot retail area. Currently, we show 6 separate units. That could be any combination of 1 large tenant or 2 or 3 different configurations and so on. The area along DeWald Avenue includes 6 residential units. There are 3 1-bedroom and 3 2-bedroom on this leg. The 1-bedroom units, besides the 1-bedroom, they include a bathroom, an open kitchen, living area for a nice modern open look, a laundry room, utility room, and a covered balcony. The 2 bedrooms include the 2 bedrooms plus an additional bathroom, with again the open floor plan, its own private laundry area, utility area, and patio.
Can you describe through the exhibits that you have what the building will look like, the materials that will be used, the coloring of the materials, please?
Yes, the exterior of the building, it's 3 stories. It's all high-end material, limestone type panels, brick, cement, fiberboard, siding, aluminum clad windows. I have renderings on another board that I'll mark A3 that indicate views of the exterior of the building with those materials. Again, you have the red brick, the limestone base of the building around the perimeter, and then the hardy board type siding in between the brick areas.
Okay. The residential units on the 2nd and 3rd floor, do they have balconies?
They do. Every unit has a balcony.
Okay. And where do the balconies face?
let me show you on the next board.
Did you mark that one?
You did.
This one's A3. Now, the last board, I'll mark A4. A4 includes a floor plan. The second and third floor plans are identical, so this would be the floor plan. The apartment units are connected from the grade level through 5 interior stairwells. The balconies for each unit, some of the balconies face the Hamilton and DeWald Avenue facades, and some of them face the parking lot side.
So you broke them up on each side?
Right, we broke them up.
Okay. Each of the commercial units, however many will be, will have their own separate front and rear entrances?
That's correct.
Okay, and entrances to the residential units is from where?
They're all from the parking lot side.
Okay. What kind of utilities will the units have?
Each apartment will have its own separate heating and air conditioning system. The units will be located on the roof. We have a parapet design roof, so none of the units will be seen from the ground.
And you've reviewed the zoning ordinance, and the building meets all of the zoning ordinance height requirements and coverage requirements?
It does.
Okay. I have no further questions of this witness.
Question from the board?
Just a clarification, just so the board understands. If you look at, for example, sheet A3 in the handout, the building, it does a good job of representing what the building's going to look like, but just so the board is aware, I think the architect can confirm, the placement of the building on the site is a little off in that, so for example, the Hamilton Street DeWald proposed, it kind of has it almost in the street along DeWald and on Hamilton Street, and it's overlaid on the existing on the existing conditions. So what this doesn't show, and I add this because it's a good thing that the project that the applicant is doing, this isn't showing the new streetscape that they're going to be putting in. The building is actually going to be I think it's about 12 feet back off of the curb on Hamilton Street and about the same distance on DeWald, whereas this is kind of showing it again, kind of in the middle of the street. There's going to be the Hamilton Street, there's a certain design for the sidewalk, there's decorative light fixtures, street trees that have been selected for Hamilton Street. So, this is depicting what the building's going to look like. There's going to be additional improvements that aren't reflected on here, just so the board is aware.
Thank you.
As far as your air conditioning, heating, and ventilating, see they're going to be on the roof?
I'm sorry?
Your air conditioning and heating, ventilation units are going to be on the roof,
Correct.
all the units? So you're going to have to duct down from the roof to get to like the second floor units? There's
Well-
not going to be individual,
They won't be ducted down. The condensate pipe will be,
well, whatever, they're going to be single units on the roof that are going to serve all the apartments?
yes.
Okay, so some apartments, what I'm trying to get to is each individual tenant won't have control over the heating system, or will they?
They will each have their own control.
Off the same heating unit?
No, there'll be multiple units. The roof is quite large.
All right, so you'll have, each unit will have its own separate unit?
Correct.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yep.
I wasn't sure
And,
of that.
and if I may, also, we included a fire sprinkler room on the ground floor.
How about barrier-free? Are you required? I don't remember what the code is.
Yes, that's a great question. The units that are along the wall on the ground level are all designed for barrier-free, which is required.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other board questions for the architect?
Yeah, I have a question. On the side that is not next to the street or avenue, on the first A1, yeah.
Okay.
Are you sharing that with the neighbors? Are there people living in the other side?
I'm sorry.
In that area, right. Are they residential?
Yeah, this is
places?
a residential area. My
Okay.
associate, Ron, will go over the site, but yes, this is a residential
To
structure
the
here.
rear on Martin Street is a residence, to the adjacent to us on Hamilton Street is a business.
Okay. And how are you separating? Are you using fences?
We'll have the site engineer present all that testimony.
Seal?
You mentioned sprinklers, but I'm assuming you don't have any firewalls between any of these units?
No, all the units are separated, and in addition to that, we're proposing a fire sprinkler system.
In every unit?
Yes,
And-
throughout,
in-
everywhere.
Okay. It's too bad the state doesn't require firewalls. That way, something like what happened in Avalon wouldn't happen again.
Well, they are separated
How are they separated?
with rated partitions. I mean, it might not be a true firewall with what I don't know what you're, but they're separated as required per code. Plus,
Yes.
we have the sprinkler system throughout.
Well, what I'm lamenting is that the code hasn't been changed by the state after that big fire that was so disastrous in that Avalon
Yeah.
unit.
There is a new code. It is a little different. That code goes into effect this month, actually, and this was designed for the newer code.
And that's why you have these materials that are more resistant to fire?
That's the basic flow, the number of stairwells, the way the units are laid out, so on.
And is the sprinkler system part of this new code also?
I don't recall if that's a change in the code, the sprinkler system.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else for the architect? And he remains sworn in, so, yeah. Oh, sorry, Ted.
Yeah. I'm trying to understand the roof and I was going on the plans here, on the architectural plans. The front page, it looks like a complete roof that goes all the way up to the peak. And yet, on the second page, it looks as if those are just sloping parapets with the mechanical, the air conditioning and heating between them. So which is it? Is it a full roof?
Well, that's a good question. The visual on page A1 is what it will look like, and it will be a sloping roof. But that sloping roof does not go all the way to the back of the building. It comes up to what appears to be a peak from the back roof, but in fact, on the other side of that peak, a wall drops down to the flat, semi-flat roof where we'll have our mechanicals.
And those mechanicals don't require protection from the weather?
They're standard exterior units. They're not the type of units that need to be elevated for snow or anything like that.
No. It's just that your A1, it looks like a lot more roof than is shown on A2. And that's what I was wondering about.
Well, again, the roof wrapping around the building will be a pitched roof back from
Yeah.
your viewpoint, and then at that highest point, it'll drop down, and there'll be a flat area that will be where the mechanicals are.
Okay. Now,
Thank you.
I understand that. Your units H, there's an outside door, but over at the right on the plan, there's another little door that leads into a little space, and I'm trying to figure out what that other little space is.
Okay, that's an outside closet that's accessible off the balcony and patio. I thought that would be a nice place for a lawn chair or a radio
Yeah.
cooler.
But what would it be for on the first floor?
Well, each unit, the first floor units are only, the outside area on the first floor units is only accessible from within the apartment. So that would be a private patio that would have its own outside closet for anything that you might want to store from the patio. tiki light.
Okay, I didn't understand that about the patio. And then you're, again, looking at the A1 here, it looks as if you have on the street front onto Wall Street, you have windows that, well, actually on both sides, I think you have windows that go all the way down to the ground on the first floor. I have a little concern about the security of those.
I'm sorry, what page are you looking at?
A1,
Right,
drawing A1 of the architecturals.
right.
And where you have the full-length sliding glass doors with balconies up on the upper levels, you have the same thing down on the ground level. And you're,
Well, the ground floor windows are about 2 feet off the ground, the bottom of the window. And then, yes, you're correct, the sliding glass doors, the French-style sliding glass doors are at grade level. They're separated from the public from, with a railing.
I just think if I lived in one of those, I might want a grill that went all the way up.
Over the
Be
patio.
sure that nobody could break
Uh-huh.
in.
Well, I'm sure that's something we could consider. I know that's always a balance, you know, people who want to live on the first floor, it's easier to get to, but it's not as secure.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead and proceed to your.
Yeah, I was remiss. I need to ask him just two quick
Go ahead.
questions concerning the signage. The signage for the commercial spaces we are proposing, it will be consistent with the ordinance. We're not seeking any sign variances at this time. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And how is the signage going to be illuminated?
The signage will be illuminated with gooseneck-style lighting that will illuminate the face of the sign. It will not be a box-style sign.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
One last question.
And it looks as if you have a whole row of gooseneck-style lights all the way down the DeWalt Street frontage.
And that was
Right,
gonna- That's going to be exactly my question, which is.
We talked about this,
Which is,
yes.
yeah, I did have a few recommended changes to the plans. One was just, you know, a little kind of tweaks to differentiate the commercial section from the residential section. So some of the ornamentation on the residential section, the architect's going to look at, kind of simplifying that a little bit. So those two sections are, again, differentiated a little bit. And then also, I made that same comment that the gooseneck lighting kind of going all around, he's going to look at that. Basically, I think it's going to be over the signage and then the different entrances. That's what he's going to explore. That's, you know, when we met with staff.
Exactly. We're going to change that lighting.
Yeah,
and
I was
different-
concerned that the gooseneck lights might actually shine in the windows.
I agree. Well, we're going to change that.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Sadowski. Yep.
Raise your right hand. Solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Name and address for the record.
Ronald J. Sadowski, 77 North Main Street, Milltown, New Jersey.
Mr. Sadowski, what is your occupation?
I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. I received my Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from the New Jersey Institute of Technology in 1988. I received my license to practice professional engineering in 1994, and I've been practicing for 22 years.
Accepted.
Thank you. Mr. Sadowski, you heard my opening comments concerning this site, and we've been working on this project for now a couple of years. First of all, the application before the board this evening, we have made some additional revisions as a result of the meeting that we had yesterday, but the application that we are presenting this evening is in full compliance with at least the commercial space, with the HBD district, and the 3 single-family lots are in full compliance with the R7 zone district. Is that correct?
That is correct.
We are not seeking any variances whatsoever in conjunction with this application.
That's correct.
Okay, let us start actually on the other side of the street with the residential lots. They are in the R7?
R7 zone. That's
Okay, and what is the required lot area?
The required lot area is 7,500 square feet, with the exception of the corner lot, which is 9,000.
Okay, and all 3 lots meet that requirement?
That is correct.
Okay, and at the present time, where does Martin Street end?
At the current time, the Martin Street ends at the, I want to say, the west corner of the residential property.
Okay, so as part of this application, we will be improving or extending Martin Street, which is a paper street in front of these lots, and improving it out to DeWald. Is that correct?
That is correct. We'll be widening, we'll be installing pavement to 30 feet in width, installing sidewalk on both sides of the street, and curbing on both sides of the street as well.
Okay. What is the width of the pavement currently on Martin Street where there are existing dwellings going back in the other direction from DeWald?
It varies.
Okay. And as a result of a meeting that we had yesterday and as part of the plan, what did we agree to do with respect to the street when we construct our portion of Martin Street?
Matilda Avenue is roughly 250 feet to the west of the property line. What we are proposing to do is extend the 30-foot pavement width, a consistent 30-foot pavement width, from the property line to Matilda Avenue.
Okay, and this is an off-site improvement that the client has agreed to do. We are not going to be putting in any curbing or sidewalks, but we will improve Martin Street all the way out to Matilda.
That is correct.
Okay, and obviously the 3 new lots will have access to Martin Street where we have improved it.
That is correct.
Okay, what kind of utilities will be placed in Martin Street?
We are extending and looping the existing water line from Hamilton through our commercial site into Martin Street. The water line will then continue to DeWald. We are extending the existing sanitary sewer. We're putting a new line, actually, in Martin Street, extending that to the existing along DeWald. There'll be gas, electric as well.
Okay, and you will, before you finalize the construction of Martin Street, bring all the utilities behind the curb so that we don't have to, or we're not going to be allowed to reopen Martin Street once we improve it for 5 years. You're aware of that?
That is correct. All the underground utilities will be brought behind the curb.
Okay, and obviously before we finalize the construction of Martin Street, we will have the curb cuts for the proposed dwellings on those lots.
That is correct.
Okay. We are also providing, now let us, street trees as required by the ordinance along Martin and along DeWald, along the frontage of the residential properties.
That is correct.
Okay. Let's jump back across the street and talk about the mixed-use building that was testified to by Mr. Ludwig. That property is also, or that lot is also a corner lot, and actually will have 3 frontages, is that correct?
Yes, it will.
Okay. Hamilton Street is a county road?
Yes.
Okay, how many lanes?
2 lanes.
Okay, and there's parking along Hamilton Street?
That is correct.
Okay. What is the current status of DeWald?
DeWald is a one-way towards Martin Street off of Hamilton.
Okay. And what is the current condition of DeWald, and what improvements are we proposing along DeWald?
Currently, it's paved, a one-way paved street. The width varies. There's no curbing. What we're proposing is to make a consistent drive aisle down DeWald, 15 feet in width from the center line, installing curb and sidewalk along the property frontages.
And then there will be the ability to park vehicles on DeWall Street also as a result of the improvements that we put in as a result of this project.
That is correct.
So in addition to the on-site parking that we will be providing, there is the opportunity for additional street parking.
That is correct.
Okay. Now, you are familiar with the Hamilton Street Business District Ordinance?
Yes.
And also the design standards that are required for construction of properties along Hamilton Street, including enhanced improvements to the sidewalk and things of that nature?
Yes.
Okay, and you've reviewed the ordinance, and when you prepared the plans, you've incorporated those things?
I have.
Okay, and in Mr. Healy's report, there are a couple other things that he has requested that we may have overlooked or needed to be clarified. We will comply with all of the improvements that are set forth in the Hamilton Street Business District. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Take us on to the site and explain to the board circulation, parking, and how the site, the commercial site, the mixed-use site will function.
Sure. We have a proposed two-way access from Hamilton Street onto the site, and also a two-way access from Martin Street. So there's two access points. There's two-way traffic throughout, 24-foot wide aisle width. We have interior parking on site for a total now of 60 parking spaces.
The plan that's, your A1 shows 56 parking
It
spaces.
shows, I believe, 55.
Okay. And then, as a result of a meeting yesterday, there's a slight modification, which we'll mark that exhibit shortly, but there's going to be ultimately 60 parking spaces on site.
There will be a total of 60 on site. The residential use, the 13 one-bedroom and the 17 two-bedroom apartments require a total of 57 parking spaces. The revised layout will provide 60. Currently, there are 2 ADA parking spaces shown on the site. The revised layout provides for 4, 2 for the commercial use, 2 for the residential use. So the 57 is required. We've provided 60. We have provided what's required for the residential use. We will be short 15 parking spaces for the commercial use. Based on 6,000 square feet, we need 18 parking spaces. We have 60. We needed 57. We have 3 extra, which count towards the commercial. We're still 15 short, so the applicant is willing to make a payment to the township parking fund.
And just so the record is clear, the ordinance calls for that. The ordinance does not require that a development along Hamilton Street in the Hamilton Street Business District provide the parking for the commercial spaces and allows for payment in lieu of the construction of those parking spaces.
That is correct.
Okay, and that's what we will be doing. The deficiency in the parking spaces per the calculations will be provided for by payment to the municipality.
Yes.
Okay.
But to be clear as well, you're also adding to the supply by adding the parking spaces. I think you can get probably up to about 7 on DeWald.
Yes.
And on Martin, at least 5 on one side and perhaps some more on the other. So by virtue of this development, you're going to be adding more on-street parking.
Are you going to give me credit for those?
Not providing it on site.
Yeah, there will be additional parking off-site, too. Now, in discussing, again, with staff yesterday, the working of the parking, what was the rear portion, the one parking lot that has now 28 parking spaces, which is the section of the parking lot closest to Martin Street.
That's correct.
Part of our revision is now that we are able to get 30 spaces in there?
That is correct.
Okay, and as part of the discussion, those 30 spaces will be specifically earmarked, one per each unit, is that correct?
For the residential, yes.
Okay, and then the remaining 30 spaces will be general spaces that will be available for use by either the commercial employees, the commercial patrons, or visitors to the residential units?
That is correct.
Okay. Can you indicate to the board what lighting we are providing on the property?
Yes, we are providing interior lighting, light poles throughout the site to illuminate the parking lot to the required township standards.
Okay. There is also on the plan that is before you in A1, extensive green or landscaping. Can you take the board through what landscaping we will be providing around the perimeter of the subject property?
Yes, we are trying to buffer the property in question from the surroundings. And so as you drive into Hamilton Street, there's a row of shrubs and trees, a mix of evergreens and deciduous trees for year-round green and just different varieties. We also have a fence that there's actually an existing fence down the driveway to the left separating the adjacent commercial property, and there's also a fence separating the existing residence to the west.
Do we know who owns those fences?
No,
Okay. We're not looking to remove them. They're there and they're going to stay there.
that is correct.
Okay. Along the residential property on Morton Street, we're also providing landscaping?
Yes, we are. We're providing some shrubbery along the frontage of the parking lot to shield headlights from Martin Street.
Okay. And there's also separating the two larger parking fields. You provided a large landscaped island in between there. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Now, we've been talking about some minor modifications to the site plan that were developed yesterday when we had a meeting with staff. Do you have an exhibit that
Yes, I
shows
do.
them?
Was this prepared by you?
Yes, it was.
Does it have a date on it?
Yes, it does. I'm sure it does. It's got today's date.
And could you read the title block for us?
Absolutely. It says Site Improvement Plan. It's the site plan sheet drawing number 3 that's in everyone's package. It's got revision date 2 with March 2nd, 2016 on it.
Okay.
All right, let's mark it, please.
That would,
A-
5.
5.
Do we have reduced copies of that?
No, we did not.
Okay.
Okay. Can you briefly take us through what the minor modifications were that you have made to the plan as a result of the meeting from yesterday?
Yes, I can. The Hamilton Street access has increased in width by 3 feet to satisfy the county planning board comments requiring a 12-foot or 15-foot entrance and 12-foot exit lane. In addition, again, as mentioned earlier, the parking lot has been adjusted to provide additional parking, which is now totals 60 parking spaces. The 2 dumpsters that were previously shown directly across from the Hamilton Street access has now been relocated to be more centralized for use by both the commercial and the residential uses.
Okay. Where did you pick up the 4 parking spaces?
By relocating the dumpsters adjacent to the 3-story residential apartment that's adjacent to DeWalt, we were able to pick up 3 parking spaces and then an additional 2 parking spaces by sliding the edge of curbing along the Martin Street parking lot further to the west. So there's 2 off of Martin and 3 off of Hamilton.
Okay, and then again, just briefly indicate where we picked up the additional handicap parking that were requested by Mr. Vega.
The existing, the 2 previous were adjacent to the three-story residence, and the 2 new spaces are adjacent to the mixed-use building.
Okay, obviously, by doing some of this, we've added some additional impervious. Just for the record, we still meet the ordinance requirements. We are under the impervious coverage requirements for the HBD zone, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
A question on the containers. We normally don't see, I mean, the only way you're going to be able to access those, you can't back it in, you're going to have to move them into the travel lane. I mean, I know our engineer, he did a quick review, had a concern about that. Is there any place else on the site that you could move that? I mean, that's the main travel lane between both sides, and the only way you're going to be able to access them is to move them and block that travel lane, which isn't typical. Normally, they're in an area that they can be backed in, or doesn't impact the main travel through the end of one of the areas, but not in the middle.
Where we, Ron, can you go back to A1? I mean, when we had them in the original plan, they were at the end of the entrance aisle. So in essence, if the garbage truck was coming in to pick them up, they would still be blocking the drive aisle on the original plan, correct?
They would be blocking the
For
entrance.
whatever momentary time it is to
That is correct.
pick up the garbage. So,
Where are the pails themselves? Where is the stuff? The fact that the truck comes in and picks them up is one thing, but where are they permanently sitting? I think that's the question.
we're proposing now to relocate them closer to, Ron, can you just point it out on the plan?
We're in
Close-
this area here.
Are they blocking anything in that area?
No. The truck will have to stop there.
Well, no, I'm not worried about the trucks.
Yeah. No, they're,
The people who live there won't have any problem with their cars, they can get out.
Yes, they're set back out of the drive aisle.
With dumpster,
no, they're behind the curb, they will be enclosed.
They're within what type of like a masonry enclosure?
It'll be a masonry enclosure, and that was one of the comments. I know that you wanted the enclosure to resemble the exterior of the building, which is what we'll do, the colors
The only
will
time it
match.
becomes an issue is when the truck is actually there trying to get pick the dumpster up or whatever it may be. That's the only time it's an
That's the only time, yes.
Did you say that, can I? Did you say that those dumpsters are next to the residential?
They're
building?
across, the parking is adjacent, it's directly across
Okay.
from that. We've relocated it so people in these residences don't have as far a walk to,
Right. I'm concerned about, I mean, if it's the truck's going to be picking them up, these trucks are pretty noisy, and they usually come at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And I know that they come at that time. For the commercial, they typically 3 o'clock in the morning, and then imagine that noise that they're going to make. They're going to wake a lot of people up.
What we have done in the past, quite frankly, we contract, they will be hired by us to remove the garbage. It's not municipal garbage that takes care of this. So we can direct the hauler to come during daylight hours and not in the middle of the night. So we if that's a
Yeah,
concern.
I think we have to be cautious here and practical, because this is a permitted use. We're going to have a number of these developments. I think we need to be aware that this is a mixed-use, Main Street type area. If you move into, I'll just be honest, if you move into an apartment, there's going to be noise. You're not living on a 5-acre lot on Canal Road. You're living in an urban environment on Hamilton Street. That's where you're moving to because there's activity.
Yeah.
And if there's a garbage truck, 5 o'clock in the morning, pick up garbage, that's what you're moving into.
Quite frankly,
we
Mark,
need
we
to
can, we can control that, though. I
I'm
don't,
just saying, I just want to caution
Yeah.
the board to, on a case-by-case basis, this development, restricted to 5 a.m. and this
Yeah.
development 7 a.m. It's not going to be enforceable. Just understand that, what the context of these developments are. We're creating a Main Street area. If you're moving to this type of environment, there's going to be noise and activity, and that's what, frankly, that's why people, we hope, are moving here. We hope it's going to be young professionals, young adult, it's college students, grad students, young professionals, because they're moving to this area because of the activity. And, the garbage trucks and urban noises come with that.
But again, to some degree, we can control them, and quite frankly, we don't want unhappy tenants either. That doesn't bode well for the landlord, so we can agree to advise, again, on some morning, will he break whatever rule? Yeah, but we can advise him to pick up during daylight hours. You've had an opportunity to go through the staff reports that were generated in conjunction with this application?
Yes, I have.
Okay, including the report of Mr. Healy.
I think you basically said you were going to comply. So
Yes.
I don't think there's anything else in my report.
Okay, and also Mr. Vega's report, we are going to comply with all of his comments. And again, there are a lot of not satisfieds in his report dealing with the issue of stormwater management. Those will be addressed with a subsequent submission.
Absolutely.
But other than the stormwater management comments, all of the other comments, we've either addressed as a result of the meeting yesterday or will address.
Yes.
And any of the revisions that we have made or will be making to the plan will not substantially change what the board is looking at. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you. I have no further questions.
I have a question.
Yes.
On these side streets, have you investigated putting in diagonal parking in order to increase the parking spaces?
We haven't looked into that at this point. I would think that putting the diagonal spaces would reduce the drive aisle width that you would have down the wall. It's a one-way street.
Well, that's something you're going to be
Well, we haven't
building it.
finalized that, but we could look into that. We could look.
Because that would increase the parking spaces.
Yeah, I think in a minimum in the short term, because the other side of the street hasn't been
Right.
developed yet. So there's certainly not enough room in the short term to do that. But in the long term, hearing one of the engineers at the other side of the table saying no, but it might be something that we can look at, but certainly not in the short term.
You need more, the more diagonals you make, the more backup room you need, so you're almost better with parallel parking than diagonal parking. You might squeeze a couple of them in maneuvering, and you have to make their whole thing tighter, accommodate. That's the only reason I'm shaking my head.
Okay, the other thing, the lighting that's going to be paid for with township money, can that all be made LED lighting?
The public service lighting along Martin Street?
Yes, or any other public lighting?
Well, we'll look in to see if that's a possibility. I know some utility companies do not offer LED, but if they do,
They offer the LEDs.
if they do, then.
We've been requiring it
Okay.
in the past.
Sure.
And
And as part of the design, the layout of the lighting, we will make it, stated to them that it has to be an LED fixture.
And I believe your on-site lighting is LED.
Yeah,
Your parking lot
exactly.
lighting.
Our on-site, but we haven't finalized the Martin Street, the wall, the exterior, the public lighting.
Right, okay.
You can put a note on the plan to that effect?
Sure.
Okay.
That's it.
Mr. Chairman?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you show the street trees along, but particularly the cherry trees along Hamilton and DeWald, where you have a sidewalk. Now, how are they going to be planted in the sidewalk? How much, will there be space around them for them to get some water to the roots?
Yeah, there's a grass strip between the curb line and the sidewalk. And then along Hamilton Street will have the Hamilton Business District streetscape planting details, which are, township standards.
Yes, part of when the township did the streetscape improvements a number of years ago, there was a full set of engineering plans that was developed. So for each of the developments that we have on Hamilton Street, we basically gave those plans to each of all of the professionals for the developments and basically said, incorporate these details in your plans, and they've done that. So there's standard details in terms of the planting pit, there's standard details in terms of the cobblestones surround the tree, et cetera, and they've incorporated that in their plans.
Bob?
I realize that this might be getting into drainage, and that's not entirely what I mean to do. But when you detailed the utilities that would be in Martin Street, I don't remember that you mentioned any sort of storm sewer. Is that to be part of the improvement to Martin Street, or don't we know that yet?
That I would have to look at the design drawing, to see what we have. So I know we have an extensive system in the parking lot. I don't believe we have any. There are two existing inlets on DeWald, approximately in this location. As part of the development with the underground system, which is to be revised, there's a proposed inlet at the corner of DeWald and Martin to capture runoff from Martin Street and DeWald, and also to it acts as an outlet for the underground system within the site. That inlet then is connected to the two existing inlets, so there are some improvements.
I guess I raised the question because, at least looking at the property and trying to envision what it would look like improved, currently it's not, but there seems to be a considerable slope from where Martin Street exists currently.
Yes.
Down to DeWald.
Yes, we're using that as, to run gravity positive flow to that intersection where we are proposing the stormwater improvements, inlets, some structures there to capture the water.
So those inlets would be large enough to sort of keep the water from scooting across the wall.
Everything will be designed to prevent that, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Alex?
I think this is a great project. Let me just start with saying that. I mean, the fact that you guys have also provided some improvements in the area from streets and so forth is wonderful. I wish you had enough parking space so we didn't have to rely on parking the streets. My concern is that with these small streets, if we have a lot of cars parking, and if we have an emergency, especially considering that we have a residential area and the big fire trucks may not be able to easily have access. And so that's the only concern that I have. And I was wondering whether or not there is a way that perhaps you can have that additional parking next to sharing with the business next door, and therefore not let too many people to park in the streets.
The parking that we have provided complies with the ordinance. All of our residential parking will be on site. The fact that we are providing additional street parking is actually a bonus as a result of this project having frontage on 3 streets, but we do meet the parking requirements of the zone. Also, we will be contributing some significant monies for hopefully the municipality to acquire some land to provide, which is part of the plan, some land to put additional municipal parking along that corridor. But basically, this plan deals with what the ordinance requires, that we house all of our residential parking on the site, which we have done, plus the handicap on site. And we have been able to, as Mr. Healy mentioned earlier, give you additional parking along the street. So I think what we have done here is probably above and beyond what your ordinance requires.
Yeah, and just to speak to that a little bit, part of what staff, in reviewing this, I met with Julio Vega in our engineering department and going over some of these different scenarios in terms of, the amount of parking versus the sight lines versus the, the turning movements for the trucks. And there's requirements that address all of those different things. So, for example, in looking at the improvement of DeWald, I wanted to make the recommendation that they add additional parking spaces, and I sat down with engineering just to make sure that that's not going to run afoul of requirements for the width of the streets. So there's requirements in the residential site improvement standards that say, okay, if you have a street of such a width, how many, can you have spaces on one side versus the other? You have to have certain turning movements, and all of those things they have to demonstrate on their plan. And they have with a few little tweaks they need to demonstrate to staff. But, and then, again, as far as the parking, earlier, Mr. Lanford had explained the shared parking scenario where the 30 spaces are going to be in the back are going to be reserved for the residents, and then the other 30 are going to be shared. So there is going to be parking on site, even though the ordinance says, a certain number is required for the residential. They're going to have those 30 spaces that can be used by residents, commercial employees, commercial tenants. Depending on the time of day, there's going to be times of the day where the residents are gone working, and now those spaces are going to be open for retail tenants and retail employees.
Yeah, my main concern was the weekends, that pretty much everybody's parked, and we want to have the stores to have a good sale. So if
Yeah.
people are going to be going there and they're wondering where to park, that was
Yeah,
the main
and
concern.
there's going to be, just in front of the site alone, there's going to be, again, at least 5, if not more, again, on the other side of Martin. There's going to be 7 on DeWald, I think, was it 5 or 6 along Hamilton Street. So, even just right there, I think the requirement is 16 for the commercial. It's basically. They basically meet it right in front of their site alone. Then on top of that, what the ordinance requires is to the degree they don't actually provide it on site, they have to make a payment in lieu of parking that's going to go to the township, so the township can make future parking improvements. And as these different developments come online, that fund is going to grow, and the township's going to make future improvements for public parking.
Yeah, and as you related it to the fire truck, John House, our fire protection reviews, and I can tell you, as everyone on this board will tell you, every little thing he picks up on. So if he doesn't have a comment and he doesn't have a problem with the access, there isn't a fire protection access issue.
Do you have another witness?
Just the traffic consultant, very briefly.
All right, why don't we go through that, and if there's any more questions that pop up, everybody's sworn in, so.
Perfect.
Raise your right hand. Solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Name and address for the record, please.
John Ray, REA. I'm a principal with McDonough and Ray Associates, Traffic and Transportation Consultants. We have offices in Manasquan and Westfield, New Jersey. I work out of the Manasquan office at 1431 Lakewood Road.
And what's your professional qualification?
I'm a licensed professional engineer. My field of specialty is traffic engineering. I have a total of 40 years' experience in the traffic engineering
Except
field.
I just
Two
needed
engineering
to hear
degrees, and with all of that,
needed to hear your licensure in
I'm
New
counting
Jersey.
cars.
All right, sounds good.
Okay. Mr. Ray, when you were originally retained, or your firm was originally retained, there was a question of perhaps some parking deficiency, and you were going to address that. But since that has been addressed by a redesign, we won't talk to that issue this evening. Your office assisted Mr. Sadowski in developing the site plan, and you looked at both the access points to the subject property and also internal circulation of the subject property. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And as Mr. Sadowski earlier indicated, there are 2 access points to the property, one on Hamilton, which is now widened as a result of the county requirements, and also the one on Martin Street. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And one of the things that came up in the staff reports was the issue, since this building basically is at the property line on Hamilton Street and is at the property line on DeWald, was the adequacy of site distances at both of our driveways and also at the intersection of DeWald and Martin Street, correct?
Correct.
And have you examined, well, first of all, for the board, and there are some newer members to the board, what are sight lines and sight distances?
Well, at intersections and driveways, you need to provide a sight triangle so that when a car is at a stopped position, It can observe traffic traveling along, in this case, it would be DeWald Avenue in a northerly direction, talking about the extension of Martin Street, which will create a T intersection with DeWald. We need to make sure that a car that is on Martin Street, stopped in a stop position, can see down DeWald Avenue far enough so that it can observe northbound traffic to make a safe decision to, in this case, it would only be able to make a left turn onto DeWald. That's the purpose of a sight triangle.
And the same thing at our driveways?
At the driveways, correct.
Okay. And has your office done an examination of all of those conflict points between the driveways and the roadways and the intersection?
We have, and on Mr. Sadowski's new exhibit, I think this is A6, if I'm not mistaken, he has shown the sight triangles at the two driveways and at the intersection of DeWald and the extension of Martin Street.
And are there standards to measure what the sight distances should or should not be?
Yes, in this case, each one of the streets that we have frontage on has a 25-mile-an-hour posted speed limit. So the design speed is bumped up by 5 miles per hour. You design for a 30-mile-an-hour design speed. The required sight distance for 30 miles an hour for intersection sight distance is 335 feet, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. And basically, the drawing, the A6 shows the sight lines as generated by your office.
Correct.
Okay, and we just gave that exhibit earlier today to Mr. Vega, who really just did a cursory review of that exhibit. Is that correct?
Yeah, my business partner, Jay Troutman, who's also a professional engineer, has met with your staff and provided that information to Mr. Vega. Yeah.
Okay. And Mr. Vega has not, at this juncture, completed a full review or determined whether, or in fact, your analysis is or is not accurate?
I suppose not. I haven't seen anything.
Okay. But based on your experience of 40 years, and after this meeting here, we will sit down with Mr. Vega, is it your opinion that we will meet the requirements and that there are no site issues at either the intersection of Martin and DeWald or at our driveways?
It is my opinion that the sight triangles have been properly depicted on the plan and will provide for adequate sight distance. I don't want to get into too much detail, but we measure the sight distance from a point 15 feet back from the extension of the curb line or the edge of the traveled way. It has been done properly, and actually the corner of the building here does not interfere with the sight triangle looking down DeWald.
Okay. And we will just confirm
We
that
can demonstrate that, yes.
to Mr. Vega.
Yeah, I just want to make it, clear that Julio did an initial review and he had some concerns and they're going to work it out. I don't want to leave the board of the opinion. He's giving testimony that he believes it works. Our engineer did not have sufficient time to delve into the details. They're going to meet and go over, there's a discrepancy in how things are measured, and I'm pretty sure they'll work it out. But I want the board to understand that that's a technical issue that needs to be worked out, and by the time the next meeting happens, hopefully it'll be worked out. If not, you'll have a report that will indicate it, and we'll have a discussion, so.
I think that summarizes it very
Yeah.
well.
Other than that, since we have complied with the parking requirements, and obviously you've reviewed the on-site circulation, the drive aisles all are in conformance with the ordinance.
Yes.
And the width of the parking spaces are all in conformance, correct?
Not only in conformance with the ordinance, but the residential site improvement standards, yes.
Thank you. No further questions.
Okay, so all other staff reports, police, fire, everything else is fine?
They loved it, yeah, they're fine.
Okay. Any other questions from the board at this point? Seeing none, I make a motion to open to the public on this.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
So we're now open to the public for any comment on this application. Someone's coming.
Hi, Tim Kelly, 193 Wilson Road, and I'm also on the Hamilton Street Business Advisory Board.
Do you have questions, Mr. Kelly, or do you want to give testimony?
Just one question. I think Mark might have already answered it. The streetlights, are they going to go down DeWalt? Part of the black decorative streetlights?
Maybe I did make some comments about that.
Yeah.
My recollection is that, well, they're certainly along Hamilton Street, and I believe they're going to wrap around the walled frontage for the commercial frontage.
For the commercial,
And
then when
to
we
the
get,
extent it turns into the residential, it's going to be regular streetlights. But for the commercial Hamilton Street frontage, it's going to have the Hamilton Street, the standard lights that are already on Hamilton Street.
That's my only question. Thanks.
Oh, that's easy. Thanks. Anyone else?
Seeing no one else come forward, I move to close it to the public at this time.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so,
How long, Pete, is it gonna take you
Yeah,
to get,
we'll
because
get
let's do that backwards. How long before you're gonna get us revised stuff?
we were in touch with the consultant to do the testing. It will be done during the month of March. So my guess is if we have to do the design thereafter, probably would be the first meeting in May, because that would give engineering sufficient time to review it. So
You want, we could do the first meeting in May, and if we have to push it because you're gonna get the results, and then you gotta do the design, so.
I think we can make that meeting, so.
That would be May 4th.
So I would respectfully request that this matter be carried to May 4th without further publication or without further notice, and
Not that
Mr. Wright
kind
is going to write it down in his little pad, so he'll remember to appear.
okay.
I'll send you an email, Carl.
Bless you. And we will be opening to the public whenever we have testimony, so we'll be opening to the public again as well at that date.
Thank
It will
you.
carry to May 4th without further public notice.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. You're almost there. Okay, so we have one more item tonight, which is we need to adopt our master plan reexamination that we've been working on for the past few work sessions. So I'll let Mark explain, pretty straightforward, I guess, exactly what we have to do procedurally.
I play, oh.
Yeah.
While he's doing that, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
For a fair amount of time, when we've had these applications for Hamilton Street, we've had donations to the township, not donations, payment of fees for parking. Do we ever get a report on what the status of this so-called fund is? And is there any plan, or is there anything happening toward providing parking? I think that's relevant to the master plan discussion in general, but I've never heard the money comes in, but I don't ever hear we have X number of dollars, or that anybody, or anywhere is there a plan?
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Yeah, I think part of the answer may be, we really have not had that many. I mean, we've had
Correct.
one or two. So, I don't think that, to the degree there is a fund, it doesn't have much yet. I think as these, next three come in, then there's going to be maybe some more money to deal with. But I think your point is, I think you have a very good point, which is, as these developments come online, right now there's plenty of on-street parking. But I think as these developments come on, there's going to be a need to more carefully look at the on-street the public parking supply and what we need to do about it. And again, as these developments come in, the fund is going to build, and we'll eventually have some money that's enough to do something with. But as of right now, really, we've had, I think, maybe two. So it's over the years, so there's really nothing to do anything with. So we can look into that and let you know how much.
Mark, if I may just interrupt for a second. I realize what you're talking about as far as the fund building up. But as these developments are coming in along Hamilton Street, the land is disappearing along with as the developments are approved. You got to look at some place where you're going to either buy the land to create the parking lot, whether you can build it right away or not, but you're going to have to do something to pick a spot where you're gonna put the public parking and do something about acquiring that land.
Yep. I
Because
don't,
we'll have 10 applications over the next couple of years, and then we won't have any place to put the parking.
I think, and I think somebody said the words master plan. I think maybe that's something we can start looking at as part of the master plan. We have representatives here from the Hamilton Street Advisory Board. You know, I think collectively, that is something that we're gonna have to look at. I think one of the complications, though, is that, that the corridor is a mile long. So it's gonna be very tricky to pinpoint where it's going to go now, because we don't know exactly where some of, you know.
Well, a mile isn't that far to walk, to be honest with you, so, I mean, you know.
I'm just, you know,
Oh, no, I understand what you're saying, but if we don't do it, we're gonna wake up one morning and there's gonna be no place to put the
No,
cars.
I mean, I agree.
agree.
I think in general, as part of this whole master plan thing, we should look at the so, I mean, right, improvements can come in a couple of ways, right? The township, or well, if it's not a county road, but the township can do things, right? Like stripe spaces, or, you know, construct spaces, or improve curbing, or parking cutouts, or whatever. That's one form it can take. The other form it can take is a municipal lot, or lots on, obviously, what would have to be township-owned property. So, I mean, in that sense, I agree with Jim and everybody else that I think we need to not wait for the money to be there and say, okay, you know, now we can do something. Likely, you know, the horse will be out of the barn by then, but to proactively say, you know, this is what we want to do so that we can earmark it and make sure that we, you know, we have a municipal lot or lots or places that parking can happen.
Well, Mike, you know, you also, we have the provision in the ordinance that says you can buy the parking spaces. If and when it comes to the point where there isn't enough on-street parking, you could change that and make it a requirement. I mean, that's a whole discussion about how much you want to encourage or not encourage, but you have that option at some point if it becomes an issue.
I'd like to add one other comment here, that if I understand correctly, these businesses and apartments are primarily to attract the young people, including businesses. So the young people, they're going to come from different parts of the town. They want to hang around in those stores and so forth. So we're going to have a pretty heavy traffic in that area if we do not have the right place for them to park. So it's not just the resident that we have to think about. We got to think about all the other people from town that we want to encourage them to go there and hopefully spend money and have fun.
Yep.
And so we need to make sure that we have a place for them to also to park. Otherwise, they may not go there anymore.
That's,
See,
right, all of these comments, absolutely. I mean, that's part of the balancing that we have to do here on Hamilton Street. I mean, we want to encourage developments like this, encourage the revitalization at the same time. Yeah, the parking needs to be adequate. So, absolutely.
Well, I understand what Vince was saying. The ordinance now calls for people to make contributions if you can't provide the parking. And at some point, we could change it to where they have to provide the parking. But the thing is, we did it this way, the way it is now, in order to hopefully encourage quicker development, easier development that works for that area. I don't know if you get to a certain point a few years from now that it's going to be very easy for potential developers to actually provide it. That may act as a deterrent to what we're trying to accomplish. I think maybe, if we have enough money in the fund or using staff, at least if we're talking master plan, come up with a plan. And there should be ways to identify sites, as was mentioned on the other end of the table.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what we need to do. I mean, we need to come up with a plan, because there's no reason to think that, if the opportunity to do it is gone, that a developer is going to have any more success than we are. And of course, we could force them to have on-site parking, but that, like Bob says, will probably limit their options to actually do the development in the first place. So, I think now's a good time this year to, work on a plan so that we can prepare for when the money is sufficient to actually do something.
Yeah. Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman.
and I believe also that the plan should be uniform and consistent with the master plan that we are talking about. Especially, we want to avoid a situation where there are going to be traffic nightmare around that area. If one thing I want to point out is, not that I'm trying to put a backlight on towns. I don't like going to New Brunswick because of the fact that they don't have enough parking, and where you have parking, people struggle for it. And what do you have? Traffic accident, and also you just don't know where to move to. So we want to avoid that in whatever we want to do, especially with respect to that Hamilton area. It's going to be a very vibrant area as time goes on, let's say in the next 2, 3, 4 years.
Yep.
Bob, and then
Yeah, there is a sort of a catch-22 kind of a situation connected with this, which is a shame, because we wish this to be very successful as a town. But the more successful it is, hopefully one of the offshoots of that will be that property values will go up on Hamilton Street. But then we will be faced with the situation that providing municipal parking, the cost of that will be going up too. So that it's sort of a shame that we could not sort of find a spot before we began to make some of these changes, which are beginning to, such as the increase in height and what have you, that do seem to be encouraging the kind of development that we'd like to see. But pretty soon we may price ourselves out of existence. We may get more money in the parking fund, but it may cost much more money to do what we need to do.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the board is identifying the issue you're identifying the potential for the issue before it's even an issue, which is a compliment and a compliment to the board and a good thing. So this is not like all these developments have gone in, we have 10 developments, and now there's a parking crunch, what are we doing? Honestly, you are identifying a potential issue and trying to address it in the future, and that's what we need to do. I agree with every comment that's been made, and we can look at that as part of the master plan.
great. Okay, go ahead and tell us what we have to do for tonight.
All right, so I'm going to give, I have about a 5-minute presentation that, we've had a series of work sessions. You've seen, this is now the 3rd draft. So some of my spiel you've heard, the planning board, but this is a public hearing, so I need to put it on the record. The last comprehensive master plan was done in March 2006. The municipal land use law requires municipalities to review a re-examination of its master plan and development regulations every 10 years, and that review is done by the planning board. The report that has been prepared fulfills the statutory obligation to do that review, and doing so protects the township from challenges against its master plan and development regs. And basically, we protect the presumption of validity of our master plan and development regs. And importantly, as we discussed, this forms the outline for the comprehensive master plan that we're going to be doing as the second step. The first portion of the document explains it basically documents the fact that the township master plan, even though the last comprehensive one was in 2006, it's not a static document. There's been a number of updates. There have been 6 updates to the land use plan over the last 10 years, and 5 additional elements added to the master plan since 2006. In March, so for example, March 2012, there was a comprehensive evaluation of permitted residential uses, but particularly where residential uses are permitted in commercial zones, and a number of zoning ordinance amendments that followed from that. And on the topic of Hamilton Street, in terms of the zoning, we did a comprehensive evaluation of the Hamilton Street zoning just last year. And the development you saw tonight is one of the developments that are resulting from the zoning ordinances that flowed from that master plan. As far as elements, we've done a number of housing elements, fair share plans, farmland preservation plans, which is required for funding from the state, environmental resource inventory, which was prepared by the Environmental Commission and adopted by the Planning Board as an element of the master plan in 2008, Pathways and Trails Plan, prepared by the Trails Advisory Committee, again adopted by the Planning Board in 2009, and then there was an Open Space and Rec Plan, which was prepared and initiated by the Open Space Advisory Committee, adopted by the Planning Board as an element of the master plan in December 2013, and that was required. It followed Green Acres guidelines and is a requirement for funding through that program. The second portion of the document, main portion, is the actual reexamination of the master plan and the development regulations. The municipal land use law requires that it address the major problems and objectives at the time of the 2006 master plan. Two, that it examine the extent to which those problems and objectives have been reduced or increased since that time, so what are the changes. The extent to which there have been significant changes in the assumptions, policies, and objectives forming the master plan, including if there's been any changes in municipal policy, county, the state, and then, again, specific recommendations or changes to the master plan and development regulations. And this document does that. So I'll go over just a few. It's 79 pages long, so I'll go over some just kind of some of the big picture stuff. Overall, the document documents the fact that the vast majority of the zoning, the land use element, which really forms the real meat and potatoes of any master plan, all of the major zoning ordinance amendments, all of the major zoning map changes, all of those have been enacted since 2006. So it's not like this is a plan that's sat on the shelf and nothing has happened. It's all been implemented. In an overall sense, the Planning Board reviewed the zoning map, and the document finds that the overall zoning scheme for the township remains valid. There are some, I'll say, tweaks that we need to evaluate, some areas where the zoning doesn't quite match what's going on. So it doesn't say, this document doesn't say this is exactly what it should be, but it basically says we're going to evaluate this in the master plan. So some of those areas, there's a property on the corner of Weston Canal and Schoolhouse that's in the senior citizen village zone. It's not large enough to accommodate that type of development. It doesn't have water, doesn't have sewer. It's in a rural area, so we're going to evaluate what might be the proper zoning for that property. There are properties on the north side of Skillman's, most of which are within 6 Mile Run. Now it's a narrow rural road, rural area of the township, again, not sewered. It's in the R40, which usually that's in a sewered area that has appropriate infrastructure. We're going to look at that as well to see if there's more appropriate zoning. We looked at the area of Metlers and Weston. Properties on either side are in the ROL, Research Office Lab Zone. Those areas would permit a pretty substantial amount of development. So there's a few issues there. First, whether there's even a market for that type of development, the fact that those are narrow rural roads, the fact that there's, even though it's in a sewer service area, the nearest sewer is up on Schoolhouse, about a mile away. So again, we're going to look at that to see if there's more appropriate zoning for that property. It identifies the office vacancy issue primarily in the corporate business zone. It encourages the township to do a economic development plan, and the township's in the process of doing that. But that's an area that's kind of the township's economic, or big part of the town's economic engine. So we need to make sure that area remains, the zoning remains appropriate. We're going to look at the clustering and lot averaging regulations. We've talked about the fact that it's kind of all over the place. We need to streamline it, make it consistent. And as well, there's some recommendations in the open space recreation plan that says that we should be looking at ways to encourage clustering and lot size averaging because it complements the township's open space efforts. We're going to look at the Renaissance redevelopment area. Again, there's some inconsistencies there, confusing regulations, overlay, underlay districts, and there's some zoning, some certain properties that are zoned general business that are kind of back in the middle of neighborhoods. Doesn't quite make sense. We want to look at that comprehensively and see what can be fixed there. The report identifies a number of different demographic trends that have happened over the last 10 years. The most notable is the increase in the senior population as a result of the senior developments in the northwest corner of the township. The 55 and over population increased by 59% between 2000 and 2010. That population was accounted for 52% of the population growth, so to the degree the township grew during that time period, one out of every two people was over 55 and over. And that's going to have some planning ramifications and some program and public service ramifications for the township. So as far as a zoning perspective, we should be looking at those areas age in place. There's going to be need for assisted living facilities, residential healthcare type uses. So we should be looking at, perhaps allowing those types of uses in the M1, ROL, CB zones in that area of the township, because we feel that there may be a need for that. And as well, it just references the fact that, there may be an increased need for senior programming, emergency services, and public transportation as those developments age in place. And then two major themes that the document kind of recognized in the master plan. It's in the land use element, the utility element, the conservation element, and that is basically the provision of public water and public sewer, which is, it basically says that both with regard to both of those important public utilities, that they should only be extended to address an acute public health or environmental emergency. And it references a number of ways in which the township has done that and has held firm with those boundaries, and to the degree that public sewer has been extended over the last few years, it's been Griggstown failing septic systems, the quail farm, Griggstown Quail Farm, an environmental issue. It's not to induce growth. And that's something that's been, through the 2006 master plan, and this new master plan will continue that theme. So that's basically it. I mean, it's, again, that's the major things out of a 76-page document. It's available on our website and has been for the last 2 weeks. And there's copies available at the township. As far as moving forward, we're going to, there's a number of elements of the master plan that we're prepared either fully by, or at least certainly with the consultation of different township committees. So when moving forward, we talked about, as far as the open space and recreation plan, we're going to give that to the open space committee and basically say, please look at this plan that you prepared. Are there any needs for updates? So same process with the farmland plan, agriculture advisory committee, environmental resource inventory. We're going to seek the input of the environmental commission, historic preservation advisory committee, pathways and trails plan. We're going to basically ask the trails committee, same thing. Please look at this plan that you prepared a few years ago. Let us know if this is still current, if there's any recommended changes. I'm thinking, after this is adopted, we're going to move on to the comprehensive master plan. It's going to take a few months to kind of get that going and prepare those documents. I'm anticipating probably sometime early summer we'll get started in kind of the next phase. Based on some of the comments in the work sessions, I think we'll probably start with developing, an overall vision statement, goals and objectives relative to the different elements, land use objectives, conservation objectives, et cetera. And then we'll just go kind of march through the different, through work sessions, the different elements of the master plan. And then again, at that point, we can talk about, probably early on in the process, what type of public input you want, public input process. So that's basically it. This is a public hearing. Obviously, if any of the members of the public have any comments, and if any members of the public have any comments or statements, it's a public hearing.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Mike, I just want to thank you for the great job that you've done. I know it was 79 pages, and you and your team did a wonderful job. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So tonight,
I'd open it up to the public.
okay, we're going to do that first?
Yeah, you should
Okay.
do that.
All right, so I make a motion to open to the public.
Second the motion.
All in favor? Anyone from the public wishing to come forward?
Should I move over to the line of?
Seeing no one coming forward, I would move that the public hearing be closed.
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so next steps. Do we have?
See, look at this. We got rid of any public right before the one person wanted to speak on that. That is
Breathe easy.
Do we?
very apropos.
Do we need to adopt a resolution
We-
that-
did-
or
Do
anything?
we have a draft resolution for them?
Yeah. I prepared it. I mean, we don't have to adopt the resolution the same night. We can,
You can adopt it just like you would a development application.
Yeah.
We can
I thought
memorialize
it,
at
was
the
it, was it in the packet?
I don't see it.
It's not important. You can vote tonight. We can adopt, we're going to meet in 2 weeks. So
Yeah.
we'll have it for you.
Well, basically, what's the gist of it? That
You have to vote, someone has to make a motion and second it to adopt the reexamination report.
Okay, so we're not adopting the, so let's be clear, especially for new members, right? We're not adopting the master plan. We are adopting this, what Mark just said, and what we've worked on for the last few work sessions, the reexamination that will then lead to doing the full master plan. So we're basically saying, yes, we're reexamining it, and these are the elements we want to reexamine.
I move that we adopt
To
the-
re-examine.
the reexamination.
Second the motion.
Councilman Chase.
Yes.
Mr. Howe. Yes. Mr. Grazzi.
Yes.
Ms. McIver.
Yes.
Mr. Mettler.
Yes.
Mr. Manzarek.
Yes.
Mr. Pettit. Mr. Thomas.
Yes.
Chairman Orsini.
Yes. And thanks, Mark, and to the board for a couple of very productive work sessions that I think, at a very high level, identified the things that we're now going to push forward and focus on.
Mr. Chairman, we are meeting in 2 weeks,
Okay?
and it'll be the
the 16th.
third of the three. The other matter on Hamilton Street is at the zoning board tomorrow. We'll be hearing 695 Hamilton in 2 weeks,
Okay. So that's March 16th. right?
March 16th, yes.
Okay. If there's nothing else, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.